Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today I'm going to talk to you all a little bit about, not Aberrus, Amirdrassil. Patch 10.2 is roughly about a week and a half away. I leave for BlizzCon in 5 days. And then before we know it, we're going to be in 10.2, and Amirdrassil is going to be live. Tonight's video, so we're talking about that. Warlock and Amirdrassil. Looking at each fight a little bit, talking about the spec I think is likely best in the fight, if not second best. Some little things here and there, breaking the fight down a little bit, and just giving you an overview from a Warlock POV. Now, it's going to be a voiceover from raid testing footage, all that kind of stuff. It might not be the spec I think is best that you see me playing on the fight. Just keep that in mind. But yeah, also worth mentioning, the guides for Destro Demo and AF will be coming out the week, I guess, after BlizzCon. I guess week of, I don't know, like the 4th, 5th, and 6th, with the patch being on the 7th. I'm trying to go for that, but it's going to be a busy week. I'm not going to be home. All that, we will figure it out. Also worth mentioning as well, a few times before, but the 10.2 spreadsheet, the Warlock PTR one, is live on Patreon. If you would like early access to that, should be a link up here to Patreon as well as down below. The tier 3 Bailguard rank or higher does indeed get that, and in general, I just really appreciate the support on Patreon. Helps me keep doing what I'm doing for you guys, and I really appreciate it. So, also, WeakCourse add-ons down below if you want them. I'm rambling here too much. Twitch, Discord links if you want them, all free for there. Let's get into the review. The first boss in Amirdrassil is named Gnarlroot, and this boss is predominantly a single target priority cleave fight. Now, there are a lot of adds that spawn from time to time from the roots around the room, which need to be cleaved down. It's sort of a meat grinder kind of fight. The adds are brought under the boss. Demonology, very good at this. Demonic Strength, Implosion Cleave, all that. To a similar extent, Affliction with Seed Spam, Soul Flame value, all that can also be pretty good here. Destro with Rain of Fire spam and just its AoE being a bit slower. When it ramps, it's very strong, but chances are pretty high these adds will die pretty fast, and you also want a good bit of a single target emphasis in this fight, which Destro's fine at, but AF and Demo are likely a little better. The boss also phases into his intermission where he takes double damage once you light all the roots on fire, which rewards classes that have like that minute and a half, I believe it's roughly 2 minutes between phase 1 and 2 back and forth cycle, which I mean Destro, Demo, AF are all good at that. But Demonology, having Minute Tyrant and Grand Warlock's design, can make that very easy. You Tyrant every intermission, you can Tyrant basically on cooldown. I believe it lined up pretty well where I had it for nearly every single burn. We're not playing Reign of Tyranny anymore, but even with that being said, Demo with that 1 minute profile, Grand Warlock's design, Demonic Strength Cleave, Implosion value, just baseline damage in general, your Vile Fiend now cleaving. This feels like a very strong Demonology fight. At the same time, you could play Affliction here with Seed, Soul Flame, and just blow the adds up, blow the boss up. I wouldn't fault you for playing either. So I lean towards number 1, Demo, number 2, Affliction. And if you wanted to play Destro, you could, but its profile without that snap burst damage is lacking a bit comparatively to Demo and Affliction. Ygera the Cruel is number 2 in Amirdrassil, and this boss is going to be predominantly single target with a little bit of cleave on the spears that spawn on players. I think it's like 6 or 8 players, roughly, depending on raid size, will get basically, well, speared to the ground, which you have to break via damage. Freedoms, bops, immunity. I don't think immunities break them. I know Demonic Circle, like Soulburn things, don't break them, and then there's Freedom. So, for the most part, you need to cleave those down every once in a while, but outside of that, this is a patchwork boss. I played Destro, I believe, on our kill for a little bit of like just Destro single target, but also some Havoc, Soulburn Cleave. I was playing Conflagration and Chaos build here, and it felt fine. At the same time, Demonology, Affliction have that good single target damage profile. If the spears are stacked, you can get decent Demo Cleave with Implosion, Demonic Strength, and all that. Affliction really couldn't get a whole lot. You can get maybe a little bit of Vile Taint value if need be, like if the boss is stacked on top of them. But for the most part, I threw an Agony or 2 on them and just sort of let them die. Wasn't really a whole lot you could do there. Now, I would say this is likely more of a Demo fight comparatively to Destro and AF. So I would say number 1, Demo. If I had to pick second best spec in this fight, I would likely say Affliction, but by a very small margin. And depending on Mythic tuning, if the spears need serious help, Destro can cleave exceptionally well. That Havoc profile, hit the boss, hit a spear, blow it up, Shadow Burn it down, or at the same time, Havoc 2 spears, blow them both up. You're playing Shadow Burn with Conflagration and Chaos this tier likely, so you're already in a good spot to get a big cleave there. Honestly, all 3 specs are relatively similar when it comes to single target damage. At times, this fight has a good bit of movement on it. At times, you can just plant. I would lean towards Demonology here, but I wouldn't fault somebody for playing Affliction or Destro, depending on what the raid needs and what they're more comfortable with. Volcaros is number 3 in the raid, depending on your pathing. This is going to be another patchwork boss. A lot of single target emphasis this tier. This reminds me a lot of Teros in Vault of the Incarnates, where it's a patchwork boss, a few minor mechanics, but for the most part, you just do them and the boss just dies. It wasn't overly tuned in testing, being an early patchwork boss, but things did hurt decently. Now, I played Affliction here. I played all 3 specs and we killed this boss. I think this is likely going to be a Demonology or AF fight if they can fix the Demonology pet pathing. Initially, your pets would run behind the boss, and the boss's hitbox is so large, you wouldn't be able to extend them all the time. In the last testing we had, your Dreadstalkers wouldn't leap into battle and Dreadbite due to the floor being a little scuffed, like how Magmrax was. That might change. Not really sure. It's likely a demo or AF fight. Destro's okay here as well, but you can see a good bit of movement with Tentacle Slams, Fire Pool, Soaks coming out. There's even more movement on Mythic and Constant Soaks as well. Plus, AF gets Sacrifice, which means you can play whatever the Voidwalker stack ability is. The Shadow Bulwark with the extra health can be relevant in this fight. A lot of raid damage coming out. Either demo or AF, I would say, on Volcaros, but at the same time, once again, Destro's close enough in single target where if you like Destro a lot and just want to play it, I wouldn't fault you for it. But my bet is going to be likely Demonology here, as long as the bugs and things are fixed with pets, followed by Affliction, and then likely Destruction being the worst choice possible. Destro, however, is not the worst choice when it comes to Council of Dreams. This fight is a permanent 3-target council-based fight with a lot of movement, depending on how you tank the bosses and things. The bosses like to jump around a lot. Now, I played Affliction and Destro in raid testing on this fight. I think the best option is likely Destruction here, playing a Mayhem Pandemonium build, and you just basically single target patchwork the bosses down and hope that Mayhem cleaves. You can play Havoc with Pandemonium here, but I mean, this is probably one of those fights similar to like Kurog Grim Totem, similar to Forgotten Experiments on farm, where you just try and high roll Mayhem, try and high roll Rolling Havoc stacks, and kill the bosses. Now, during early testing on PTR, Affliction's tier set was bugged, and if you Rapture with AC, Absolute Corruption, it would remove the permanent effect. It is not bugged anymore. I played after this fight in later testing, and it actually felt fine. I guess the damage felt fine. The problem was, even with AC, you're still juggling multiple dots. Bosses are running around the room. You're getting, transformed to a duck to clear the things on the floor. There's a lot of things to get in the way of Refreshing Agonies and UAs and Bile-Taints and Soul Rots. It is very hard to get Soul Rot ID cleave here as well because the bosses run around all the time. As Destro, you just patchwork a boss down and hope Mayhem procs. You maintain 3 Immolates, but typically you just refresh in a Mayhem window either way. And if the boss leaps across the room with Havoc on it from Mayhem, it's going to launch a bolt for 100 yards and hit the boss. It felt like they were pretty close here. It might be a long-term AF is a little better if you want to, try hard it and micromanage a million things. But Destro feels pretty solid here. Triple Immolates, a lot of shard value coming in. Chaos Incarnate, possibly max mastery benefit. If not, just try to play Rift. But either way, I played Destro with Mayhem. Tried to high roll Rolling Havoc stacks, all that. Even if you low roll them, you can get pretty good cleavage Destro here. My bet is number 1, Destro in this fight, followed by number 2 being Affliction, and I think Demonology is a terrible choice in this fight, personally. But if you want to play it, I mean, it's an early boss, likely isn't that hard either way. But I'm going to say number 1, Destro, number 2, AF, and number 3, Demonology on Council of Dreams. Laridar, Keeper of the Flame, is going to be, I guess, the final boss of this wing in the raid. It's number 5, I would assume, probably progression-wise, as far as normal pathing guilds. This boss is in phase 1, predominantly single target. There will be a small wave of adds and spawns, which you can cleave down early on in the fight, and I believe roughly once every minute or so past then. On Heroic, these adds died in 5 seconds. On Mythic, it took about 15. Demonology felt really good here. Now, this is Demo with old tier bonus when it was doing a lot of damage, but you have that Dreadstalker, Implosion, Demonic Strength, Stat Cleave profile, just very good, what Demonology does. You have to kill these brambles that are running around every once in a while to basically do the mechanic of the fight. But either way, besides that, it's like solid single target emphasis. You can even weave Doom Brands on these things by casting Demon Bolts on them as Demonology. They die early, spawn a Doomguard maybe. I wouldn't say that Affliction is terrible here. The adds don't spawn quickly enough from what I've seen to get permanent Wrath of Consumption value here. I believe the brambles are a little off compared to like the ad spawns, but I have to look at it again. Even Destruction felt okay. You can get a decent bit of Havoc cleave on the adds that spawn in phase 2, which there's multiples that slowly encroach upon the raid in the middle of the room, and they have a little bit of health. I would say overall though, for that strong single target emphasis with like pretty solid movement, defensiveness, all that, likely a demonology angle here. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Aflocks being played in this fight. Maybe some Destro down the line. But as far as things are concerned, I would say number 1 Demo. Number 2 Af. If there is a Wrath of Consumption angle here, which you can see probably not going to be with ad spawns and things. So if you get lucky or can chain it, it might be worthwhile here. And then probably number 3 being Destruction. Destro's AoE profile, not incredibly strong in like Snap AoE. In Sustained AoE, it's fine. Ramp AoE, but these ads don't live very long. So yeah, Demo's damage profile, stat cleave, demonic strength, all that, and even Af with seed, seed with spam, all that. I think it's just too hard to overlook, too much to overlook when considering those 2 specs and their profiles versus Destruction. Naimu is a very interesting boss. It has been reworked, I believe, a couple of times on PTR, and I think the most recent version is actually a pretty solid version of this fight. Some things can be worked out still. I think the larger pools you see here spawning can be a little smaller, and maybe the mechanic tweaked a little bit. But either way, I played Af in this fight. Af felt good. In phase 1, the boss is stuck in the wall. It never moves. This is a patchwork fight in phase 1. When the boss hits full energy, which is going to happen in about probably 20 seconds here, the boss was in the phase 2. She spawns an ad in the far left and far right of the room. They are too far apart. You cannot cleave them down. You can hit the boss in one ad, and for the most part, you can't. I mean, you can't cleave both ads at once. On Mythic, a third ad will spawn, I believe, in the middle of the room, which is shrouded by, I believe, like smoke, which only the people in the smoke can hit. It's like a smoke bomb effect, from what I understand. Either way, Af with soul swap in this boss felt very good. I apply my dots here. I might soul swap, I might not. I don't know. But either way, you can soul swap the boss, carry all those dots from the boss onto the ad, and it gives you a pretty strong, soul swap there. Lets you yoink those dots, go over here, and there are the dots on the ad. Bam. It feels pretty good. And your tier bonus here, watch my dots in my SUF frames. They all extend because I cast Soul Rot and I'm Rapturing here, both on the boss and on the ad. Af felt pretty solid in this fight. Demonology has some issues with pets running back and forth between this target, back to the boss, to the other ad. And who knows on Mythic with the actual smoke ad being in there as well. Not terrible, but I think with Af and Demo being that close, it's quite possibly an affliction angle. Also at the end of this fight, in like the final phase 3, it hurts a lot. There's a lot of raid damage coming out. It might even be an ID angle for raw survivability. They recently increased the enrage timer in this boss from 7 minutes to 12, which means I hope it's not that long of a fight, but either way, it could be. This is basically, from what I can see, the end boss equivalent of this side of the raid to what you saw in Laradar. This is going to be the end of the more like, I guess, greenish kind of wing, right? From what I understand. Could be wrong. But either way, this boss looks tough, but I think fun in a sense. I'm going to say number 1 here, it's probably going to be Affliction, followed by Demonology, and then Destro. And don't get me wrong, Destro's not bad, but you can't cleave both ads at once. And the boss is taking basically no damage at all when the ads are out. So there's not a whole lot of Havoc relevancy here. You can stack rolling Havoc by hitting the boss in the ad, but in the end, how important is that when one is shielded, right? So I'm going to say in this fight, I could be wrong. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say number 1 Affliction, number 2 Demo, and probably number 3 Destro. But it could be a Demo fight over Af. Just depends on final tuning, where the fight lands and all that. But Lock felt pretty good here. And being able to soul swap usefully felt great. Smolderon is the 7th boss you're going to encounter in Amirdrassil, and this boss is going to be quite the ride. There is a lot of raid damage in phase 1, avoidable raid damage, some of it is at least, but it is a lot getting hit by these tornadoes. As you can see here, I eat most of them. There's either those or a large tank soak, and the boss alternates between phase 1 and phase 2 basically every minute. In phase 2, when he hits full energy, the boss will cast a Whirl in Flames kind of ability, which means basically the room will be filled with lava, and you have to dodge the waves, which is, I believe it's a set pattern every single time to not die, and deal damage to the boss. You'll also spawn 5 orbs out of your character, which you need to soak for a damage amp. If they hit the boss instead of you, the boss gets a damage amp, and it does damage in his phase, so it's very important to grab the orbs and not let him have a damage amp for the rest of the fight. Whirl in Flames being cast here, the boss runs in. This is where the orbs spawn, you get knocked back, and then you begin to collect them and dodge the fire waves. Now, I think it's either a Demo or Af angle here. You can't play Destro in this fight and dump Chaos Bolts with this amount of Whirl in Flames going on, and it's faster on Mythic as well. I would assume Affliction's the best spec to play here. If you can get all your dots applied early, have everything max, basically max pandemic ready to go, cast your Soul Rot, cast your Bile Taint, and just begin dumping damage everywhere. Dumping with that Soul Rot, dump the Raptures, and get some TC procs, and do big damage. The boss takes double damage in this phase. Demonology can also just Tyrant here, but it doesn't line up perfectly with phase 1, being able to CD there. AF does, being half a minute with Soul Rot. You can CD in phase 1, CD in phase 2. Doesn't matter where you lust really, because it lines up pretty well. But with Demonology, even if you are Tyranting in the intermission there, you're not playing Ram of Tyranny anymore. You're playing Grand Warlock's design, which is pretty mediocre when it comes to those big damage amps. Affliction, you can Soul Rot, buff 3 Raptures, get all your dots up, cast your Dark Lair, hope to crit, pop your trinkets, and, hopefully the boss dies. This is going to be a crazy boss. I'm saying probably number 1 Affliction here, followed by Demo and then Destro, but in the end, it'll depend on Whirling Flames tuning, depend on what your raid needs, and depend on damage profiles of what end tuning ends up being for every spec across the board. Tindral Sage Swift is the penultimate boss in the raid, and this is going to be quite the boss. There is a barrage of mechanics that happen in phase 1, in phase 2, and phase 3. These roots that spawn here, this is normal, number 1. This is normal, not heroic, not mythic. Mythic casting was pretty fast. Lasted about a half minute per pull here. The boss hits incredibly hard. A lot of mechanics happening over and over, like overlapping here. Phase 1 is basically Sarkareth. It feels like 0 to 100, 10 things are happening at once, and the fight hopefully gets easier the longer it goes on. It did at least on normal. Now, I would say this is, once again, either a Demo or AF fight. One of the big things in this fight, you might want snap damage for the roots here. Now, at the same time, if you Dragon Ride properly and put the dragon, if you land him on top of the roots, he will do damage to them. As long as he lands on them, they will not spawn treants when they die. If you don't land on them before you kill them, they will spawn treants. So, depending on the strategy that your guild employs, it might end up being like a big Demo Cleave fight. If you want, or if you need, Demo can do that. Demonic Strength, Implosion Cleave, all of that. If you want more single target damage, not as much like root damage, Affliction, solid option here. You can get a good bit of Wrath value in phase 1, possibly in phase 2, depending on timing, because there are indeed some adds in phase 2, roots and things like that. And at the same time, when the boss flies away and the dragon riding begins, the boss goes to a second platform and a third platform. Whenever he gets to both, he shields, which you need to break the shield before he casts his bad ability. I don't even know what it's called. Big explosion. And you die. Classes that can do that very well, specs can do that very well. Demonology can sort of like set up quickly with the Tyrant, like just Grimoire, Vile Fiend, Dogs, and the Tyrant. Destro, unfortunately, can Infernal, but you have to dump multiple Chaos Bolts to actually, do big damage there. Affliction, however, can put up a few dots, cast Soul Rot, and get those 3 big Rapture amps into that shield, as long as you're fast in your Dragon Riding. None of the Warlock specs are incredibly fast. Can't just land and start blasting a second later, but either way, you want to break the shield before the Supernova cast ends, and you wipe. I would assume that Affliction's likely your best bet here. You can see the multiple times in phase 1, have that half-minute Soul Rock cooldown in phase 2, pop it here, kill the boss. But once again, even if you can pop things as Demonology here, you're playing Grand Warlock design. You're not playing Ram of Tyranny. Now, you could opt for Ram of Tyranny here, but even if you do, Ram of Tyranny isn't that bursty anymore due to all the nerfs that came in. So it could just be a Warlocks don't do much to shield angle, but they kill roots a bunch, or they're here for utility. There's going to be a... How do I word this? There's going to be a lot of interesting damage profiles in this fight to try and match what this fight wants in progression. But it's going to be a great fight. I'm excited for it. I'm going to say, honestly, it's either Demo or AF. They're probably about the same, number 1 and 2. I think Destro's likely the worst spec here, just because you can't dump damage into shields fast. There's a lot of movement. Chaos Bolt doesn't like, a lot of movement-based fights. It's slow when it comes to the shield burst, and probably a little awkward cooldown-wise as well. So I'm going to say number 1 and 2 in no particular order, AF and Demo. It could be Demo and AF, but I would also assume that Destro is likely the worst spec here by a decent bit, and we'll see where it goes. But overall, Tindral looks to be a really, really good fight. Also, spoilers ahead, there's no Fire Act testing here. He was not tested on PTR, and honestly, it looks like every spec could be good in that fight, so we're just going to call it here. Tindral looks good. Fire Act could be any spec. There's a Cleave ad in the fight. It could be a Destro fight, but once again, we haven't seen it. We'll know more when the raid comes out and we get closer. But overall, I think Locke is pretty solid this tier. We're not the best when it comes to just raw damage. I think it's more melee-based a bit this tier, unless tuning hits and things change. But out of all the ranged, maybe there's a couple of specs that are better than us, but I think Locke's a pretty solid bet. handful of fights probably went 2 locks, if not most of them. I think we're fine. Just tuning needs to happen a little bit, 'cause some classes are still pretty wild comparatively to others. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully it summarized Amirdrassil in a decent way for you all. I guess from a Warlock POV. Keep in mind, things can change. They could literally change, buff, nerf Warlock a crazy amount within, I mean, tomorrow, the next day, the week of BlizzCon, who knows. Tuning will likely still happen for a handful of classes, like Demon Hunter, maybe Rogue and things. Enhanced Shaman doing pretty well. So we'll see where it goes. It does look right now like melee is a little better in the range in Amirdrassil. But I think out of all the range, Warlock's up there. Just we all need a little bit of help, I guess, comparatively. But we will see where it goes. So let me know in the comment section below what you guys think about the current, I guess, state of lock heading into Amirdrassil and the specs that are, I guess, recommended here so far on bosses. I'm excited for some AF play, maybe a little bit of Destra as well, but I think most of us are maybe a little tired of Demo being pretty good. But I mean, hey, you know, just sort of is what it is. It's the world we live in. So, like always, weekly wars add-ons down below, Twitch, Discord links if you want them. They're all for free for you guys. And like always, a shout out to my patrons who are in the video. For all support on Patreon, guys, a million times. Thank you. I really appreciate it. If you're looking for support on Patreon, should be linked up here, as well as down below in the description. And once again, the tier 3 failure guard rank or higher gets early access to the 10.2 Warlock PTR spreadsheet, which is, well, now on Patreon. So, but yeah, all that being said, I guess we'll see. I am leaving for BlizzCon October 30th, I think, something like that, 31st, a few days from now. I will try and have some videos queued up for when I'm at BlizzCon to like go live on the channel here and stuff, but there might be a bit of a lull in content. Probably not many streams when I'm at BlizzCon, but if big things happen, I can make a video in a hotel room. So we'll see where it goes. But all that being said, thanks for watching, guys. If you like the video, hit the like and sub buttons below. Helps out a ton. And I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.